Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of the Cheapseats. This is our close to final episode of the season, more penultimate because we've got the final weekend going, and the only thing that's left to play for is the championship, or the top, the number
The
one
only thing.
spot. Well, that's yeah, because Arsenal's given us everything, and they've thrown it all away, and so. All I'd like to say is congratulations, Dean. Your decade has been saved in this past week.
I accept none of it. I will talk to you on Sunday evening.
He's trying to jinx you.
I am not saying a single thing. No, not. Okay. I can't.
If you can't beat Norwich, that makes you worse than us.
No, you would lose. Yes, we just need a draw.
Okay, let's not get into any debates. Remember, the show is sponsored and partnered with Classic Shirts ZA. So, Cyrus, we got you because you're playing for nothing this weekend. We decided to put out a Chelsea home kit 2003-2005, the Didier Drogba special that made me cry, to as our shirt of the week. I think you have this one, Cyrus.
Yes, I do. I'm wearing it right now. It really, all the feels. There we go. It's DJ Drogba, tra la 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 la. The thing about that particular kit was it was the beginning of the most amazing times of our lives, and seeing Drogba literally rip everybody apart.
Beginning of the most amazing period of sport washing in the Premier League.
Yeah, started off by some pretty poor business decision making from Manchester United that has definitely impacted all of our footballs. But anyway, this particular team was just sensational. And Didier Drogba, there's nothing quite like that bad hair Drogba. He was something else. He really tore teams apart and looked terrible while he did it. And I think what was great about that kit was it was so simple. It just said champions. We don't need to do anything else. We just need to win.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. Whereas the rest of us are fashion clubs. But you can get all those kits and more at Classic Shirts ZA. You can see we're all wearing Classic Shirts kits, except for Wahid, who's reminding me of a very bad time in my life when Robin van Persie moved over to Manchester United. But you can get that shirt too at classicshirts.co.za. Please do check them out and use the discount code Cheapseats50 because we are sending you there. So, gents, our show today is awards. We've got one more game week to go. Everything to play for Dean, it seems. Nothing for me to play for. And so we decided it's the best time to talk awards. Wahid, the whole week has been talking about awards. And so we've decided to have everybody give us who their best players, who the manager of the season is, who the player of the season is, who the most improved player of the season is, as well as the team of the season. So you can have a look, agree with us, disagree with us. If we're talking rubbish, you can let us know, especially my team, because I've got a front line of 4 and I've forgotten about defense, but that's fine.
Guys, I spent the time making the slides, and Mpo's team, I actually laughed when I made it. So let's have a look.
maybe we start with Mpo.
I saw those names and I was like,
Let's do that. So this was done in the last hour or so. But anyway, so my player of the season has been Kevin De Bruyne. I think he's done quite well. I was torn between Son. I wanted to give it to Son, but I felt like giving it to a Spurs player was a little bit too much because I don't think Dean just doesn't think they're going to make Champions League. My young player of the season is Bukayo Saka. I think he's done a great job. He's taken a massive leap going forward. You could have put Declan Rice, you could have put whoever it is, but I love my star boy, especially after that Euro. Most improved for me was Jared Bowen. I thought he did a really good job at West Ham. I thought he gave us something that West Ham have been missing for a while, and it's going to be quite interesting to see if they can keep him. Mark Cucurella is my signing of the season from Brighton. I don't know if he was there before, but it was the first time in the Premier League, and he did an incredible job for them. So, yeah, but he feels like the signing to me. And then Eddie Howe is manager of the season. if you want to take Marco Correa out, I'd put in Bruno Guimaraes. I think he was one of the key reasons for Newcastle to get themselves back in. He's a quality midfielder. He adds a little bit of stardust to Newcastle. So now,
Cucurella's first season at Brighton and Hove Albion. He was signed in the summer.
Beginning of 2021. I just remember seeing somebody with big hair running around. Clearly, it's been that long a year.
he's so great at left back. He's
look
one
like
of those
a left
guys.
back.
Like,
yeah, he's clearly a left winger.
So here's the thing. If Arsenal could shop at Woolworths, we could get a Marco Correa, but we don't shop at Woolworths. We shop at ShopRite. So
no.
We're not
no.
going to get
What makes you think that Cucurella was at Woolworths?
No, well,
Where's off there now?
Tell me.
He was at ShopRite.
Yeah.
And we got Nuno Tavares instead.
You decided on something else. The guy came from Getafe. And it's not often that, like, you're basically saying that Brighton and Hove Albion went to Woolworths ahead of Arsenal. No, they just knew how to do their shopping. That's
I'm talking about this coming season, because obviously there's rumors that he's going to City. And so my thing was, yes, we missed out on him when he was at ShopRite. He now is in Woolworths, and only probably
we're going to drive past.
I go to Woolworths just to watch him.
And Arsenal was signing Nuno Tavares from the side of the road, like from a hawker.
You see, the problem with that sort of analogy is Manchester United actually did that. They went and signed the hawker. So it's one of those where
also there's no return policy, and Arsenal's wishing there was a return policy on Tavares.
Well, why are you going Tavares when the clear player to look for a return on is Pepe? But I like your list though. I must say that of those, like Bukayo Saka, I think is a deserved candidate in Young Player of the Year. But I think we all know who's going to get it. And I think that's it. Is that in terms of who, and that's Trent. And but one of the names, and I saw, I think it's Tsepo who put the name on there, is Conor Gallagher for most improved. And what's intriguing for me is what marks improvement. Like, I mean, we're NBA fans in Paul, so we look at like somebody becoming an all-star. So if you get an England cap, does that make you a most improved? Was it just saying England have really starting to scrape the bottom of the barrel?
Well, we'll see. I looked at it from a stats perspective. So previous season, how did you play? And then how does it look? And also from a value perspective. So Saka's so valuable to Arsenal that if he's not there, they lack creativity up front. And Arsenal are sitting in a place where Wahid disagrees. They should be sitting in 5, which is an improvement from last season. So that's how I saw it.
Okay.
But let me just put up my team of the season, my front 4. I'm going 4-2-4.
That's a front 5, mate.
Yeah,
it's a front 5. Like I made it 4-2-4 there, but that's a front 5.
So I wanted. So my thing was that my midfield would have actually had Mane come into the midfield. But yeah, so
because he is a midfielder, hey, he sits in the
forward,
midfield,
but he can play slightly deeper. But you can put Bukayo Saka on the right. But I thought these were the guys, because I was like, who are your best 11 players,
really
regardless of necessary position? And these are the guys. I couldn't necessarily leave anybody else out, apart from I saw a lot of people at Kovacic, which would have then meant that Mane would have actually have to sit out, and I didn't want to do that because I thought Sadio had done a good job.
The insane attacking nature of this team isn't even my biggest question. It's the fact that you haven't chosen Virgil van Dijk.
No. I thought about it, and I was like, no, Antonio Rudiger's actually had a good season. So,
but Diaz has been injured for like a large percentage of the season.
Yeah, I thought about that as well.
Like you choosing Diaz based on last season's form, not this season.
Yeah.
Reputation.
Also, can we just say you can see that Mpo is going after an all-out attack because Arsenal haven't scored a goal in the last two games. So he's just like, any way I can get a goal, please.
And keep Saka in the team.
Yeah.
I mean, that's
Yes.
Keep the guy that can't score,
because in essence,
put around him people that can.
yeah,
Yes.
it's pretty impressive. I mean, like Rodri is going to be working his socks off, just trying to, considering that.
Bro, if I was Rodri in that team, I'd take off my shirt and I'd walk off the field.
I'm looking for a transfer to
Like,
Norwich.
there's no way I'm mopping up that mess.
He's got no help. And even better is that you look at the left back and the right back, neither of them are defenders.
I thought about that. I thought about that. I was like, actually, no.
Everybody's going to be up the pitch.
It's just Diaz looking at Rudiger going, bro, what are we doing here?
But it's two things. Excitement FC and Heart Attack FC all rolled into one.
Okay, let's go to Wahid.
I remember there was a quote from Louis van Gaal where he was playing this insane 3-5-2 that was very boring to watch, and the chants from the Old Trafford crowd was 4-4-2, and they wanted him to play a 4-4-2, and I remember him saying that his bum was twitching on the sideline when he played the 4-4-2, and I can just imagine that every single part of Louis van Gaal would be twitching with Mpo's 11 there.
Definitely, I must say. Clearly, there's an issue with Manchester United managers' bums, because Fergie squeaky bum time. Is talking about his bum twitching. I don't know what's happening with the seats at Old Trafford. Get them heated.
Okay, guys, let's move on a little bit quicker. I've got Wahid's team of the season, which is probably less daring as mine. So Wahid, just take us through your team of the season.
So I almost went for Son for player of the season, and then I kind of changed my mind because I gave myself the Luka Modric Ballon d'Or vibe, where it was almost like you were just like looking past Son and De Bruyne because it's boring to pick them. And in the end, I went for De Bruyne because it's boring, but to me, he's the best player in the league. And I think that one day we'll talk about Scholes, Lampard, Gerrard, and De Bruyne. He's that good. He's by far the best player in the league, and he's a joy to watch. And unfortunately, he plays for the Blue Half of Manchester, but he's phenomenal. And I think he's been the best player in the Premier League so far. He was injured for a little bit of the season, but the impact he's made post-injury has been phenomenal, and I can't look past him. Young player of the year, I think Declan Rice. Declan Rice, why I've gone for him over Alexander-Arnold is that Declan Rice is starting to remind me a little bit of a young Roy Keane, insofar as that he's not really the defensive midfielder everybody thinks he is. He's actually a really good ball carrier. He's a good box-to-box midfielder. He gets involved in the build-up play as well as putting in a good defensive shift. And I think that he's really improved his game and taken it up to the next level. Is he a number 6? No, I don't necessarily think so. And I think people are getting carried away with him being a number 6. I think he's becoming quite a good number 8. And I think we'll see a lot more of Declan Rice next season. Most improved player, I've gone for Fred, and I think people will laugh at me, but I think that last season Fred was the absolute laughing stock of Man United. Fans hated him, the media hated him, and I think to go from that to being possibly Man United's best player this season, especially post Ole leaving, I think that is a massive improvement from the base that he was on last season. Last season, I can't say that I was a big fan of Fred, but again, he was playing in a double pivot with McTominay, doing an okay job and being able to come to sort of aid United in the low block and counter-attacking style we played against big sides. But when we came up against smaller sides, it's pretty much the reason why we couldn't put more pressure on City is because we couldn't break down the smaller sides with Fred as the number 6. He's gone on and changed his position slightly to a number 8, and he's doing a lot better. He's one of our better players this season. Shout out there to Thiago Alcantara, who last season was nowhere. I think we all understood what a good player he was, but he was nowhere for Liverpool last season. Didn't nearly hit the heights that he should have. And this season he's gone on, and for me, probably apart from De Bruyne, the best midfielder in the Premier League this season. He's such a good metronome in sort of that Michael Carrick role where he just keeps everything ticking.
Are you going to compare everything to a United player?
Yeah, that's him. That's him.
100%. Why wouldn't I? Luis Diaz has been phenomenal. He must be so glad that he didn't choose Spurs. He's just taken Liverpool up a notch, and after his signing, I think I'd probably say that he was their best player post January. And to me, I don't think Liverpool would be in the position they are in, fighting on all four fronts without that addition. So yes, he wasn't the start of the season signing. He hasn't been there for 12 months, but absolutely phenomenal.
And Jurgen Klopp,
really like that.
manager of the season.
Jurgen Klopp. I mean, it's just, I think that it could have gone again. It was between Pep and Jurgen, and to me, I pretty much just enjoy the Jurgen Klopp style more than I enjoy the Pep Guardiola style. I quite like the way they play, and unfortunately, again, it's for my arch nemesis.
Isn't this kind of like pick which type of poison you think tastes better?
Yeah. Pick the one which is going to kill you quicker, because then you don't have to endure it for much longer.
All I can say is that Fred pick was out of left field.
I get it.
Never would have picked Fred.
But
I get it. I get it now. He has been a lot better.
So Wahid, do United fans now see where the problem was? That it was never Fred, it was the guy next to him.
Or the guy on the bench.
I think Cyrus hit the nail on the head. It's probably the guy on the bench, because Fred didn't play number 6 for Shakhtar, and he doesn't play number 6 for Brazil. And I mean, you can't be a mug if you're starting every single game for Brazil. And when they've kind of figured out that he might not be as talented as Paul Pogba, but he does more for Man United in Paul Pogba's position than Paul Pogba does, I think we've seen much more from Fred. As soon as he's moved into a midfield 3, playing on the left side of the midfield 3, we've seen a lot more from him. So yes, I loved Ole. Everyone knows that. I was sad to see him go, but he didn't use Fred in the best possible way that you could use Fred. Fred does have some shortcomings, but playing him in that number 6 position sort of highlighted those shortcomings, whereas playing him in the number 8 position sort of highlights what he's good at, which is energy, which is getting up and down the field. Like, I'd almost like, I don't want to make comparisons now, but yeah. I was gonna say like Park Ji-sung might not be the most talented player, might not be the most talented player in the world, but he can put in a hell of a shift. And putting him in that 8 role has seen him put in that shift a lot more than in the 6 role.
Do you replace him or try find someone to push him onto the bench next season?
Well, Donny's coming back.
Yeah, look, Donny is a whole nother kettle of fish. He gives me proper Davy Klaassen vibes at the moment. But let's have a look. I'm not sure what to do with Fred. I think that he is a player who doesn't need to be sold. But he could form part of a very good squad if we use a squad mentality. Ferguson was very good at using those types of players like Park and Darren Fletcher and John O'Shea, who might not necessarily have been the most talented players, but form part of a good squad.
Okay, let's move on to your team to have a look at that. You've gone for, I'm going to try and move the banner so we could see. De Gea, Trent, Virgil, Laporte, Cancelo, Rice, Thiago, De Bruyne, Son, Kane, and Salah.
So I went a little bit opposite to you, Mpo. I try to find an 11 of 11 players who play really well together. So my midfield 3 is sort of a metronome, an attacking midfield, a creative player, and one that will get up and down and do defending and aid in the build-up attack. Son and Salah in the wide positions, with Kane in the 9.5 up front. Cancelo and Alexander-Arnold doing what they do, and then Laporte and Van Dijk, I think, are the best defenders in the league. De Gea isn't necessarily the most modern goalkeeper in the world, but he's had a hell of a season, and I think we're probably like 3 to 4 positions higher than we would have been with a non-shot stopping goalkeeper in goal.
I was stuck between him and Ramsdale for goalie, but I kind of felt that there were times where Manchester United found themselves in a lot of holes.
Didn't you pick Alisson?
I put Alisson, but I was stuck between those 3.
Yeah,
and then I was like,
the problem with keepers like De Gea is that they face so many shots that they have to be good or bad, right? And so
I thought about that.
When your quantity
I thought
is
about
so
that. I
much
thought that
higher.
the defense has been so bad. Maguire and Co and Varane have been so bad that De Gea's faced a lot of shots. But I'm not looking at the ones that he should have been pulling out. There was a ton of saves which he shouldn't have been pulling out, and they were absolutely phenomenal world-class saves.
But that's exactly it. I'm not even using this in terms of trying to beat him down, but rather in the sense that it almost feels like if you have a good defense in front of you, you're penalized for that. So like an Alisson can almost be looked at as being, well, how good is he really? Because frankly, he's got Virgil van Dijk, and you put anybody else next to him, like Joel Matip, who's been really good this season. So, you know, you look at those guys and you think, okay, De Gea looks a lot better than Alisson or Edison, but I think they're all within the same sort of realm. I must say, Edison, he gives me Brazilian Kepa vibes, so I'm really not sure about him. But
there's a mistake there. Like, if you force it, there's a mistake.
Yeah.
Cyrus, let's go to you. Your awards, give us a synopsis of why you've gone this way.
No problem. Look, Mo Salah for me has been phenomenal for quite a few seasons now. It hasn't stopped. He's helped push this team towards a championship yet again. And his goals have been critical to that. And also him being part of any Liverpool team creates such a threat that you always expect them to do something. And I think almost if you look at it from an FPL perspective, often if you had to choose a captain in your team, you weren't really going for any of the other guys that we've picked in our teams of the season. We picked Mo Salah because he's so consistent and you generally know what kind of sort of stuff you'll get from him. Trent, pretty much the same. So many goal contributions from a right back. Not the best defensively, and he's not terrible. But I think that when you look at what Trent does going forward and how often he's been critical for Liverpool this season as they've chased on all four fronts, he's been one of those. And for me, Mason Mount has been one of the most improved. I know he's not Wahid's favorite, but I think the thing about Mount is that you look at him statistically and his impact on a lot of the games that he's played in. He's really just become more and more important to this Chelsea team that's had to do stuff. I put Luis Diaz because I think it's a no-brainer. He has been the signing of the season so far. And honorable mention goes out to Eddie Howe, who we haven't put a manager as signing of the season before, but his involvement at Newcastle has changed absolutely everything. And I don't think any other manager would have had the same or similar effect. Imagine putting Frank Lampard into that role. I mean, I love Frank, but geesh, Newcastle would be where Everton are now. And I think that's the critical aspect to it. And then Jurgen Klopp is a no-brainer because of what he's achieved so far. I mean, obviously chasing City down 1 point behind them going into the last game of the season is a heck of a thing, especially when you've won the League Cup, just won the FA Cup, both of those on penalties, are in the Champions League final. I mean, those are Fergie-type achievements. Look at it. And so this season, it's hard to look past Jurgen Klopp, considering City have had an opportunity to be in every single one of those finals and were knocked out by Liverpool and then themselves in the Champions League. So those are my that's why.
I'm not gonna go into the whole Eddie Howe and manager thing because obviously we're gonna talk about it next week when he tells us that he would have done a better job at Arsenal. When we do our expectations episode at the end of the season. But I was surprised that you didn't consider a guy like a Conor Gallagher. I know Teppo mentioned it in his team, but obviously he's not going to be on. But obviously it's really tough, obviously, to pick outside of Trent. But if Trent's won it many times, who's your next guy after Trent?
So next guy up is a really interesting one because I do think it's between Bukayo Saka and Declan Rice. Yes, in fact, they've just arrived for their award. The thing for me is I look at those guys and I think Declan Rice and Bukayo Saka have been playing at such a high level all season long. Conor Gallagher has potentially fallen into the most improved player category rather than young player, because to come from where he's been in the Chelsea youth setup to then becoming a starter at Palace and being so integral for what they do, you have to look at that as being something to acknowledge. But I've looked at those guys and said, yeah.
One last question, then, while he's got a point on Mount. Does Conor Gallagher walk into that Chelsea starting 11 next season?
He does for me. Because when I look at him, I think, okay, fine. But the big problem is, who does he replace? And this is where we've got some major question marks, because if we play with a double pivot or two at the back, I'll be totally honest, I just don't see Jorginho staying at Chelsea. He's one of those guys where the fan base don't necessarily, he's so slow on the ball sometimes, doesn't really offer you much going forward. Yes, he can pick out a pass, but he's not even Thiago. And Thiago Alcantara is who we expect Jorginho to be. And Jorginho, even now that his penalty taking has taken a bit of a tumble, I just don't see it. And so you look at Conor Gallagher and you think, okay, fine. If Gallagher's there, then maybe he plays next to Kovacic or next to Kante. And if they play three in the middle, there's always an opportunity for him to play. So I think he sticks around, and I think he becomes really integral to what Chelsea do.
Wahid, do you have a point on Mount?
Is Mason Mount, like, his statistics have improved from last season? I think that last season he had 9 goals and 9 assists across competitions. Then this season it's 13 goals and 16 assists.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, his statistics have improved, but has he improved on the eye test?
You know what's interesting?
To me, he looked better last season and going into the Euros than he does right now.
His type of play has changed a little bit over the course of the season. And I think that what I've seen more of is him putting in effective performances rather than this sort of lung-busting runs that he had to do last season. So, and I like I dislike the play when he was playing, but I like the comparison. Darren Fletcher at United is that a lot of people watched United and thought, what an absolute nonsense this guy is in this team. Yet he played most games, was really integral to what Fergie wanted because he brought the energy, was able to fit into the system, brought other players into the team, and weighed in with goals and also key tackles when needed. So
do you remember his header against Chelsea in 2006?
Yes, absolute crap, but it went in. So what can we do? But that's my point, that, and yet I think that Mason Mount is a far more skilled player than Darren Fletcher ever was. But in terms of what they bring to a team, that's the kind of thing that I'm looking at.
Cool. Okay, so let's have a look at your team of the season. Moving the banner again here. You've got Alisson in goals.
Yes.
You've got Van Dijk and Rudiger. Fabinho, Kovacic are some of the difference makers compared to everyone else.
So the thing for me was Alisson, I think, has been one of the more consistent keepers in the league. He is very much a modern keeper, and he's a pretty good shot stopper as well. There have been times where Liverpool's defense has let them down. Van Dijk hasn't been as good this season as he's been in previous seasons, yet he's far and away one of the best centre-backs in the world. Rudiger, for me, effort-wise, has been so good. He reads the game really well, and he's the kind of defender that does a lot of the mopping up. And those guys tend to get a lot more eyeballs because, when something's gone wrong, you're seeing them absolutely hair around that pitch trying to make last-ditch tackles. And he's got a bit of a shot in him, but I prefer he doesn't take that many shots. And the rest of the fullbacks really sort of speak for themselves. Fabinho, I think, has been one of the most underspoken of midfielders this entire season. He is so central to what Liverpool do. And much like Rodri, I think you have to look at how important they are to allowing the other players do what they do. In fact, weirdly, I think Rodri has a better goal-scoring record. That might edge him. But I think Fabinho's ability to break up attacks and then move the ball forward quite quickly is just one of the reasons I picked him. And I also, if I'm going to put Kevin De Bruyne, do I really want that many, City guys there? And then the other thing for me is looking at that front three. I love Heung-min Son. I think he's one of the best players in the league by miles. Harry Kane is potentially the best striker in the league. He's just been consistent and obviously shaking off all of that no transfer to City. And then Mo Salah, it goes without saying. But I loved what he'd said about Kevin De Bruyne in terms of that Gerrard Lampard debate. It really right now is a Kevin De Bruyne and no one else debate because there hasn't been another central midfielder or midfielder who has been as important in the league as De Bruyne has been. And every single thing that he does is special. And Chelsea won that Champions League final after Rudiger took him out. Because if De Bruyne had been on late on, he could have come with a worldie. He does everything. Absolutely smash the ball in.
And also he's changed his role from a pure number 10 to an actual pure midfielder. He's not playing as a number 10 anymore, which Scholes did similar, but De Bruyne has taken it up a whole nother level. So in that Scholes Lampard Gerrard debate, we're gonna have to add De Bruyne in.
Yeah. And he does everything. And then to go and score 4 goals in a game.
Exactly.
I don't think any of those guys that we mentioned have done that. I think only Andy Cole did.
And Ole did it Yeah, I'll let it too.
Okay, to our Spursy fan, finally we're gonna get to see Kulusevski or Kulevetsky, whichever way you want to call him. Dean, your awards. Let's go.
Yeah. So, player of the season, I think a lot have been said about Salah and De Bruyne, and to be fair, it's between those two for me, but a little bit of recency bias, I think, would put De Bruyne ahead of Salah, but Salah pre-AFCON was just unreal. He was scoring for literally fun, and he was so pivotal in that team that you don't have to try and argue with someone why Salah is a good player. I just think...
Dean, why not Son?
For me, it's not Son, just because... And to be honest, it's quite scary that Son have entered your guys' mind and he didn't even enter mine. I think
because
Spurs...
He's like the top goal scorer. He's like one away from Salah.
Which is, I think Spurs fans honestly are appreciative of Son, but I think they don't realize just how good he actually is. And say that what you will, but I think we've seen him come through. He's been there now for 5-6 years. He signed another long-term deal, and it's kind of like we expect him to do well. And there's no like blowing out of the water performances because we expect him to be so good, and he is always so good. So for me, when other guys talk about Son, it's kind of like makes me realize just how good he actually is, which sounds ridiculous. But for me, I still put Salah ahead of Son, just because of overall, I think Salah is a better player. But this is the real conversation I wanted to talk about. So young player of the season and signing of the season is Kulusevski. I don't care what anyone else says. If you have to look at...
Let's end the show right there. Let's end the show right there. Thanks, Dean.
So from a young player perspective, I know Trent and I know Declan Rice are obviously probably the two guys that will most likely win it, with Trent probably coming out tops. But if you have to look at Kulusevski versus Saka or Rice or Trent, it's a little bit tough because he only joined the league in January. So trying to look at the comparison, I think the most like-for-like comparison with Kulusevski is Luis Diaz. So both arrived in January, both from different leagues. And if you put them next to each other, Kulusevski has outperformed Diaz. It's as simple as that. He's got 3 goals, 8 assists. 3 goals, 8 assists for Kulusevski. Diaz has got 4 goals, 3 assists. And everyone is going on about Luis Diaz like he is the second coming. He is the absolute greatest person ever that Liverpool have ever looked at. Spurs were looking at him. And we got Kulusevski, which there is so many things that we're going against Kulusevski. He's 22 years old. He's coming out of Italy, which is historically a slightly slower league.
And had been failing there.
Had been failing at Juve. He wasn't in the starting 11 at Juve. He was that like fringe player that didn't really get game time. He's young. He's from a different league. The man walks into Spurs and he takes...
He was like Juve's Donny.
Yeah, he was. But this is what I'm saying. Like, he comes into the Spurs team. He takes Lucas's spot. Bergwijn can't get ahead of him, who's been there for longer. And we are instantly better when Kulusevski is on the pitch.
I know you want to make more points here, but I'm going to stop you right here. The reason why he walked into the Spurs team is because everyone else was crap. So let's make that point. And I think the other thing is he's elevated that position because there was nobody who really held it down. Whereas Luis Diaz walked into a team that had Diogo Jota as the next best guy, and he was really damn good. So he's there ahead of Firmino, he's there ahead of Jota, and that's why everybody's looking at Luis Diaz and saying, this Liverpool team was so good that they signed another guy who just walked straight into it, as opposed to the Spurs team was so bad and they signed this youngster who's looked really good next to them.
But it's also it's a stylistic thing because Conte had Bergwijn and Lucas, who all wanted to go around the outside, and it's not really Conte style to want like really wide men. So with Kulusevski coming on the inside a little bit to support Son and Kane, that is more stylistically in keeping with the Conte style. So he's just gone there to fit into a style rather than just rather
But
than
the
torn the
same
world
could be
apart.
said.
Yeah.
The same could be said
Okay.
for Lewis Diaz.
This is my awards. The rest of you guys keep quiet. He
Okay,
is the best
Dean,
signing
yes,
carry on.
player
yes.
of the
Dean,
season.
carry on.
Simple
Move
as, you
forward
guys
from
are wrong.
Kulusevski. Let's talk Alcantara and Eddie Howe.
So, most improved player, I just want to put it out there. I said Thiago before Wahid even thought about him. So, just putting that out there. For
He
me,
was in my
Thiago
team
is,
of the season.
after I said my team of the season.
No.
You said Fred was your most improved. So, Thiago has improved. It's very clear. Last season, he had, I think it was only one goal involvement. This season, he's got, I think it's 4. Yeah, so he had one goal involvement last season, and he only played a total of 30 games across the entire season. This season, he's played 37 games, 2 goals, 4 assists, and he does pass the eye test for me in terms of what you're looking at. He is better than last season. So he looks a lot more confident on the ball. He's playing those types of balls that's spreading it across that Liverpool midfield, that he's got that like little bit of class that now everyone was expecting. And I think there was a bit of that German tax to be paid for him coming from Bayern into Liverpool. But I think that is now in the past, and I think we'll only see Thiago go from strength to strength in that Liverpool team. And I think he is so central to that Liverpool team doing really well with Fabinho next to him, kind of sweeping up. So for me, it's Thiago. And then manager of the season, for me, it was, and it's a very Spursy kind of thing, but I would say Conte is very close to manager of the season, taking Spurs from 9th to pretty much in the Champions League. Shut up, Wahid. Wahid can say whatever he wants to do. Conte has done a job at Spurs.
Next week we're going to come and unpack all of this.
That's fine. So we'll leave that. But if we talk about Eddie Howe, they were relegation positions. He's taken them. They're safe. He has coached them out of relegation because he's made some good signings. Bruno Guimaraes, you can't deny the impact that guy's had. So there has been assistance, but I think from a coaching perspective, they could have got someone who would have just kept them kind of just above and maybe still be fighting for their lives. Eddie has taken them above. So,
and he's also turned Cyrus's favorite player into a defensive midfield genius.
So I think
my goodness,
the logic.
I saw a tweet. It said, on the old days on like FIFA 12 and FIFA 13, you could move a player from one position to the other, and depending on the stats, they'd like improve. And Joe Linton is a person who was a 73 striker, and you moved him into CDM, and he's 85.
Maybe that's where Eddie got the idea from.
He's John Dublin. John Dublin, but in reverse.
I think Klopp and Pep are probably the two best managers of the season, but Eddie Howe, for me, has done the best job.
I like your comment there. I will, I have to fight you on everything. It seems to be the way. But as much as I love the job Eddie Howe has done, it's impossible to look at him and then say he's been better than a Jurgen Klopp or even a Pep Guardiola, because those guys are playing in the big leagues. They are doing some big stuff.
They are the logical choice.
Potentially, Eddie Howe's possibly the best coach, because what he's done with and I mean, like, if you look at the long staffs, heavens to Betsy, how those guys are still getting games, unbelievable. But he's managed to make them look kind of okay. Then, and let me dare I say, Voldemort himself playing for Newcastle. I mean, it's crazy, and this is where you see. I mean, even Wahid has had this online debate about how being better than Arteta, and I must say I'm not necessarily against that the way of thinking. I do think though that Eddie Howe was also a bet for the long term. That they knew that they had a coach who could potentially bring the team back up if they got relegated, as well as improve the current team. So I think that's why they looked at him and said, "Look,
let's not ignore the fact that they stumbled onto Eddie Howe. They didn't want him. They wanted Unai Emery because that was a bigger name, and the Saudis wanted that, and they sort of stumbled into this direction.
Sometimes you get lucky.
Was Eric Ten Hag your number one choice?
Guys, okay. We're gonna talk about that next week. Let's get through Dean's team of the season.
Team of the year is copy paste Cyrus. So again, I said my team of the year. Cyrus looked at my team of the year and said, "Oh, that's a good team." Copy paste.
It's actually so weird you say that, because I saw that you posted it. I didn't even read it. So we just think alike. We just think alike.
Yeah,
which
the
is
one thing you
weird.
guys agree on finally is the team of the season.
Wait,
I think that-
Dean, is your team of the season, is it not contradictory to what you just said in your picks? Surely, if you're saying Thiago is that good, then surely he should be there, maybe ahead of Kovacic.
So for me, and I think this is the reason why I put a team together of an 11 that I think would play well together and would probably put in sync. Thiago would probably be a like for like replacement from Kovacic, but I think Kovacic is really good at picking the ball a little bit deeper and running forward.
And turning. He's
and
unbelievable.
So I think for me, Kovacic is a little bit better there, who could then give it to the likes of KDB and spread it around. That's the only reason why I went Kovacic over Thiago. And Salah over Kulusevski, which is close because Kulusevski's basically just a ginger Salah.
The ginger Salah. We're going to end it at that. Thank you very much, guys. The ginger Salah.
Nobody is ever going to take this show seriously when we call Dejan Kulusevski the fucking ginger Salah.
Well, you guys should start recognizing real.
We're going to get banned from YouTube.
Okay, guys, thank you very much for joining us. If you agree, let us know. If you disagree with our awards, please do so in the comment section. Outside of that, thank you very much, gents, for joining us. Remember, we've got an FPL show, final one of the season. We're going to have Tepo on, who moved up, and Dean moved down. And it's going to be a episode because it's going to be the last FPL show of the season. So please do watch out for that. Outside of that, goodbye, good night, and Sale Kakahiso.